1977, we, from this school, we do hereby proclaim October 25, 2018 as John Fairchild Day in the City of Encinitas in honor of John Fairchild for his love of basketball, his stellar record-setting career, his willingness to support his high school alma mater, and the future of Mustangs basketball. And therefore I, hereunto, set my hand and cause the seal of Encinitas to be affixed on the 25th day of October for you.
Ceremony on the court. He's back today to receive a long overdue honor. BYU inducted him into their Athletic Hall of Fame in 1980. Palomar College inducted him into their Hall of Fame in 2012, and now it's his high school's turn. Come on up, John. Fellow Mustangs and guests, I have the honor and the privilege to present to you San Dieguito's 2018 Hall of Fame inductee, John Fairchild, class of 1961.
Surprise, what a tremendous honor.
Thank you.
It's funny, as you go through the years and you get a few accomplishments from basketball and athletics and things like that, the accolades that you get I've always been proud of, but I don't think there's anything here like this that humbles me more on this honor. Thank you very much for all of it. I am a little nervous, so I'm sorry. And they said, well, you have to say a few words about your high school here and your traveling and maybe the things that you did around this area. I want to tell some stories about Randy, first of all. And I have to tell you that what helped us playing on this in 1961, we actually, is to give it the rest of the teams and the fact that we have all the athletic ability here, the rest of the teams, we were Triple Crown in 61. We won the championship in football, we won the championship in baseball, we won the championship in basketball. And interesting enough, the athletes, we only had 127, I think Jerry said, graduating class in our senior year in 1961. And I'm sure the guys before me had less than that, probably. And interesting enough is that the teams that played on the guys that played on the basketball team probably played 3 sports. And if you look at Randy, and I have to brag about him a little bit because he used to be one of those guys you were scared to death of. And you just wish he was always on your side because he's a pretty big guy. And it was interesting because he played on the basketball team, one of the guards, and we had Jimmy Gonzalez, and we had Danny Lyman, and I'm trying to think, Ted Reitman, John Stanley, a bunch of guys like that, and all were double and triple sport players. Randy played basketball, football, and baseball. He was MVP on the football team and MVP on the baseball team. And then he went, I guess you went down to San Diego State, didn't you, for a while? Been running back down there? Yeah. So it's interesting that the last time we were here, we had a couple other players like Dan Lyman and Jimmy Gonzalez and things like that. So it's interesting, the talent that makes you a better player is the talent around you. You know, the stronger the talent is around you. We had the same guys playing the same sports because when we moved from here, and I went to Pepperdine, when I came back here, everybody that played here at San Dieguito High School all went to Palomar. So the guys that played on the basketball team went John Stanley, Ted Repa, John Martin, and Dave Foster, guys like that all played here. So it's kind of fun as you go through all the processes. I remember going to Earl Warren Junior High School, and a lot of my friends were, I think there was a place called Eden Gardens, wasn't there, a little south of, you know, and like, trying to think some of the places. Jimmy lived there, I think. It's funny because I have all the pictures from these places, guys, and I've known Jerry since we were probably in kindergarten. And he's told a lot of stories about me from all kinds of years. I think they were lies, unless they were really positive. And it's funny because we have pictures, I have pictures in first grade, second grade, third grade, you know, and he's right up there with all the rest of them, Dennis Booth and the guys who were at that class. And you know, all of us guys like Gary, we know Gary Stuber, and all the guys that were on our class, I'm looking back and I said, I don't even remember going to a football game. And I asked somebody, I said, did these guys ever see me in a football game? They said, no, I don't think we did. I had too far to travel, and I don't know how I got there. We moved to Ballora for a while, so I did go to probably a couple of games at that time. But Earl Warren Junior High, then I went to Oak Crest Junior High, and that was a fairly new school. I was only there for a short time before coming here. But interesting enough, that story that I think it was Sue that told that little story about me going out. That was my first year. I went from being a freshman at 5'11 and a half, going into sophomore at 6'4".
Whoa.
So I'm sure I wiped my parents out money-wise for 6 inches, you know, between that period of time. And when we got to Oak Crest Junior High, I guess I went out for the team, and I remember having these pair of tennis shoes. They must have been about 25 cents, I guess. I don't know, because when I go to put on the brakes, I did the splits. Yeah, $1.99, and I think they were kids, if I remember right. But going from there, when you talk about those things, I guess when she told the story about my mother going down and talking to the coach, my mom really did that. And I think if I'd have known about it, I'm not quite sure I'd have showed up at Oak Crest again, you know, because it's just one of those things. But I kind of, behind me, I was going, oh, that's kind of a nice thing, because at least I'm with the team. And a couple of the guys on the floor were children of people that were in the military, and they got transferred out. So I got to get a uniform and get on the team. So from my standpoint, my thought behind that is, I know there's a great player that played for the Chicago Bulls, and he got cut from the 9th grade team as well. And I'm sitting here going, anybody help me with the name? Michael Jordan. It must be an age thing for me. Michael Jordan got cut from his 9th team. So when I came here last time, I said, guys, just because you hear something that's negative and you don't like what it sounds, and there's something in your heart that you really want, man, go for it. Right. You know, don't let somebody convince you that's not a good deal. Right. Because if you want it bad enough, you'll make it. So 9th grade, I got cut from the team. 10th grade, my dad got transferred up to Washington, so I went up there for a year, and I played sophomore basketball up there, and then transferred back down here my junior and senior year. And we were fortunate to do as well as we did. I mean, it had a lot to do with all the athletes that we had with us. So without that, I want to tell a story with Mr. Simpson over there, because when I knew I was going to be here, and they said, you're going to have to give a speech. I kind of like, what am I going to talk about? So I get out my old yearbook, and I start reading, because I didn't know about that. I didn't know about all the things that you had accomplished, Randy, until that last basketball game, you know? So I apologize for that. But and there's a guy named Dickie DeWeese. I don't know how many of you guys know Dickie DeWeese. And Dickie was one of those guys that was hard to describe. And I always felt that Randy was just as strong as he was, and just as accommodating. But Dickie was just one of his little guys. He just did what Dickie did, you know, what he wanted to do. But it was interesting because Dickie was a wide receiver, Randy was a wide receiver, and Dickie played running back too, I think? Yeah. And it was interesting because I don't know if they have the record here, because we don't have a football team here anymore. But Dickie DeWeese threw a pass to him, and he took it 92 yards for a touchdown. Oh. And I think that's a record here in school at the time. So that's kind of neat. So it's just one of those things. I mean, you go through the stories. When I talk to somebody will say something or remind me of another story. And so I can tell you a couple of stories with the Lakers. The fellow that in that picture sitting on the bottom row in the middle, Darrell Emhoff. He's about 6'10", maybe 230. And Darrell played at Cal Berkeley, an All-American at Cal Berkeley, 6'10". He played for the 76ers. Played for whatever team, but it was the 76ers at the time. I don't know if any of you know who Wilt Chamberlain is. Oh, yeah. I mean, these are the guys I played against. You hear about Shaq, and then I see Wilt Chamberlain bench pressing 450 pounds at Pepperdine, and things like, oh wow, and he had like a 36 waist and a 62 coat, and he ran the 440 and 49 flat.
Wow.
And high jump like 6'10", something like that. So tremendous athlete. But it was interesting because at the time when we were going through all this, and when I was a rookie with the Lakers, they said, I told them I went to West and Baylor, said I'd like to be able to learn how to play a little bit better defense. And they said, oh, we got the guy you can talk to. You got to talk to Daryl Imhoff. And Daryl was a center, and I was thinking I was playing guard. I said, well, that's not a very good idea. You know, how am I going to have to handle the ball and get a little bit better defensively when I'm talking to a center? So I went over there, just really had no idea. He was the guy that was guarding Chamberlain when Chamberlain scored 100 points in a single game. And they told me to go there. They told me there to go and get my defensive ability improved by talking to him. And I'm like, wow, you know. And then, it's fun. It was funny at the time. I went, wow, you know. It's kind of like, okay, well. And then he said, who sent you over here? You know, I pointed at Baylor. Baylor kind of turned around, turned his back, walked away.
No.
Like he didn't do that, you know. And it's some of the things that it was like a big fraternity. Most of the guys were there. It's like going to college the first year, and you happen to be in a fraternity or something like that. Same way there was a game that we used to play, card game, which is called In Between, like AC Doocy or something like that. And I came from Brigham Young. I thought maybe smoking and stuff like that was all illegal. You know, you weren't supposed to gamble, you weren't supposed to smoke or any of that stuff. So you used to squeeze me in the middle of this table for AC Doocy, and it would be, if you put an ace and a 2 down and the pot was like $15, and you say, oh, I'll pot it. Well, if you came up with a 2, it was $15 out of your pocket into the pot. And that was our per diem for a day, was $15. And so if I lost $15, I didn't eat for the day. So I tried not to get in those games that much. So, yeah. I'm trying to think of some of the other things that might have happened, but I don't know if any of you have any questions. I'll be happy to try to answer any questions you might have or anything like that.
Just keep talking.
Just keep talking? Okay. I was trying to think, I'll see if I can grab a couple more notes here and see if there's anything I haven't talked about. But it's fun because yes.
Well, I wanted to ask about going into the ABA. I mean, that was so new. I mean, did people say don't do it? You know, or...
Well, that's an interesting question because the ABA was formed in 1967. I was with the Lakers 65, 66, but I didn't play the full season in 66. They had an expansion to Phoenix and an expansion to San Diego. And San Diego was the San Diego Rockets, and they eventually moved into Houston. And so when I talked to Rudy LaRusso, he said, you got to go. It's a money thing, because at that time, if you played at least 5 years, that was a long career. And guys now were playing 15, 20, and making a lot of money. That's another thing, too. I think I came out averaging 24 points a game, 15 rebounds. I signed for $10,500. And I can't even remember if I got a bonus. I think maybe I got a $1,200 bonus. You know, and then I went and washed the windows that summer with a teacher friend of mine. Made more money in 4 months than I did on my Laker contract.
Oh, wow.
You know? So I'm thinking, I wonder if I should play more ball or be a window washer. You know, it all came down to the money thing, you know. So going into the ABA, when I jumped, the team that was in LA was the Anaheim Amigos. And when they started that team, four guys from BYU were actually trying out for that team. Jeff Condon, I can't remember the couple, we'll move on anyway, but it was interesting because I was there maybe 1 year and got picked up in the expansion I went up to Denver Rockets, and you know, now they're the Denver Nuggets, and I was there a short time, went to the Indiana Pacers, and I was with the Pacers for 2 years. And one of the things that they mentioned about BYU was there were 4 players from BYU that went in their first year, went to the finals with a team in the NBA. And it was only one that went to finals in their first year in the ABA and the NBA, and that was me.
Wow.
And it was interesting because I went there with the Lakers and we lost in Boston Gardens by, I want to say 4 points, I think 4 points.
Oh, wow.
And then we went to the Indiana Pacers and we played the Oakland Oaks. They had Rick Barry, and he didn't play, but they had a team that, I think we lost by, it was 12 points in Oakland for the last game. So there's 2 times there, but it's interesting. I just went back there for the 50th year annual reunion, and that ring that they gave us is on one one of those little programs in the back. That ring's gotta be that big around. And it's a very nice ring. I was gonna wear it, but I forgot the number on my safe. No. I was gonna call my good friend Dave Bacon to come over there and help me get my safe open so I could wear the ring, but I didn't do that. We didn't have enough time. I didn't even know he was gonna be here, you know? And then he comes here and he gives me, well then,
never see it again.
well, that's true, but then you came in and you gave me a kiss. You know, you shouldn't be doing that, you know? You're gonna start talking about me, but it did. It really was a neat thing, and when you first went into the ABA, some of the teams some were graded better than others, and Indiana was probably the top one. So going there and being able to play with them, and they've won 3 ABA championships there. I don't think they've won any more, but they have won. And if you think about, you've talked about the guys like on the Lakers, I think all of us guys, beginning to be my age and the guys we played with, they aren't with us anymore. And out of 11 or 12 guys on the team, 6 of those guys have passed away. Rudy LaRusso, Bob Boozer, Fred Schaus, Leroy Ellis, and Walt Hazard. So 5 of us. And it's funny because it's just the nature of the beast, I guess. But there's so many athletes around, and having what we had here was just tremendous. So.
Well, you know what I wanted to say, John, is one of the things that amazed me is he said he didn't have anybody to mentor him. You know, like she asked, you know, did anybody say don't jump to the ABA? And you told me you wish you had that, but nobody.
Yeah.
He didn't have anybody to talk to tell him what to do, and I thought that was interesting. He said they didn't even have workout gyms.
No, in fact, the weightlifting thing, we had a bunch of guys at the beach, and when we moved to Palomar, I remember Joe Brennan said, "Oh, you guys are all from the beach. You just know you got sand in your toes and you surf, and you don't know anything about practicing and all that stuff." And we go, "Okay, we'll show you." You know, so it's just one of those things. It's one of those things that can be a negative response, but all the guys acted towards it positively. I remember even at BYU when we used to run the gym. I mean, I think the first thing we had to do was run a 3.5-mile course under a specific period of time in order to maintain our scholarships. And I don't know if that was the time then, but I mean, guys were struggling. But we ran, I think we would run 40-yard sprints forward, walk 10 yards, turn around, run 40-yard sprints backwards, and finish up with a 210. We wound up running 16 sets of those a day. But the coach felt if you're up a mile high, why play a controlled game? You might as well run somebody to death. And we led the nation in scoring that year at 96 points a game at BYU. And we wound up 6th in the nation my senior year. So it was fun. I mean, again, Indiana Pacers were the most professional team at the time, so anybody playing in that league would go, God, we want to be there. So I was counting my blessings when that happened.
What year was that you graduated BYU?
When I graduated BYU, 1965.
And you were there 2 years?
I was there 2 years of junior and senior because I went to Palomar Junior College at the time. Well, again, I could say to you that, you know, when you're in high school, I mean, I don't remember, my parents didn't graduate from college, so having somebody, whether it be high school or whatever, and you say, well, you know, I want to go to college, but I don't know anything about the SAT or the ACT. And I was scared to death of tests for some reason. And the ACT, I didn't know you could go to the library. Nowadays, we got computers. You can get on a computer, and you can dial it in on Google or whatever you want to do, and you've got everything you need to study right there. And it gives you directions and everything. And I can't believe that I'm the only one, but I'm sure there's a lot of kids growing up going, oh man, you know. And I think I wound up going to Pepperdine because I didn't have to take the SAT or the ACT because it was a religious college at the time. I don't know what the rules are now. But you make all these decisions based on something like that. And it would be all experience, you know, it'd been nice. And I didn't even think I don't know, I'm sure we had counselors here, but I didn't even think to get that direction. Not because the coaches, I think they all did a great job. You know, we all knew exactly what we could do, and I don't know whether, I just didn't know exactly what to do, but that was appreciative of my wife's suggestion there. Anybody else? Did I answer yours okay?
When you look at the guys today, LeBron and Shaq and people like that, do you see an extra skill level than you guys had, or do you think that maybe they're just better trained, or were you guys equal to what they're doing today?
You know,
Maybe just not
no, I
far.
don't think I couldn't even say that we're equal, because these kids coming out of high school at 6'8", 6'10", 250, 240. Good friend of mine is Joe Caldwell, played ASU, he's 6'4", vertical jump 50 inches, whatever. His son played at, trying to think, Marvin Bagley, 6'11", 235, 18, 17 years old. He was a freshman at Duke University. Was taken the number 2 draft this year, went to Sacramento. And Joe Caldwell, that's his grandson. So it was interesting when you see these kids at 6'11", I mean, when you look at LeBron's about the same size he is now than he was when he came out of high school. 6'8", 240. And one of the nicest guys you ever want to meet, very nice guy. Some of these guys are a little hard to talk to, but he's a nice guy. And then these guys, the game is different. Where we didn't have a three-point shot now. A lot of the rebounding records that I have 2 rebound games over 25. I have a record at BYU at 5 over 20. But, and the most games, the record for 20-point games and 20 rebound games as well. But nowadays, the three-point shot takes that all the way because the trajectory is different. It used to be a lot more arch, now it's more flat. So when it comes off the rim, it comes out farther. So you just aren't going to have the rebounding techniques and things like that you have. They don't pick and roll. They carry the I've got pictures of a hand underneath the ball, you know, and carried it, things like that, but it's all for show. And guys, you're gonna go pay those tickets to watch pro basketball. They want to make sure that there's a show put on. And LeBron is probably one of the better players. Michael Jordan was one. He had some tricks that were pretty amazing. And I used to like to hook a lot. You know, you fake one way and hook somebody, and I was pretty thin. I think it was Randy gave me this name. Did you give me a stick? Is that your fault? Huh? When he gave me that, he says, "That's okay, I'll follow you around, nobody will bother you." And then when I was down at Earl Warren, yes.
I'm just gonna tell you in a minute, I think one of the basketball boys has a question. One of the basketball boys.
Question in the back.
Oh, yes.
Would you shoot the three-pointer if it was in your time?
They didn't call it that, but that's where I shot it from. It would have been nice in high school. I mean, I think I shot a lot of, I don't know, did I? I didn't. Did I stay right in the middle?
No, you were all over. You had a good shot. You and Larry.
Yeah, it's 23-9 is a fairly easy shot, but now the guys shoot them from here. And if you know how to play defense, there's a lot of things you do defensively that I try to tell guys I'm working with, how to position yourself on defense, how to shoot. We used to shoot the ball and release it way up really high. And you saw that one picture? They say white guys can't jump. I had I had 40-inch vertical. Maybe that's not as good as most of them, but I could jump and touch about 12.5 feet. If you know the white square on the top of the backboard, I could jump halfway between that and the top of the backboards and touch in that area. But I have guys that can you hear these jokes about taking $1 off the top of the backboard and leaving change. There are guys that can do that. And it's just one of those things, and it's been a lot of fun. It was it just was a great time during that time. I can tell you some other stories too. I want to tell you one, but I'm not a drinker. I don't smoke. I don't drink. I remember as a rookie with the Lakers, they always liked to challenge that situation, I guess. And they took us over to the Playboy Club. Again, I told you a little bit about how you come out of Brigham Young because they're pretty strict about everything you do. You've got to be really careful, words of wisdom and things like that. And they took us over to the Playboy Club and we were playing pool and they said, "What would you like to drink?" I said, "Oh, I'll take an iced tea." Well, do you guys know what a Long Island iced tea is? It's about 4 shots of liquor. I mean, I didn't find that out till later. I had a hangover for a month. You know, right there the night before a game, and I think he said, "How was that?" I said, "Well, that's just a little sweeter than what I like." You know, "You want another?" "Oh, sure, I'll take another one. What the heck?" You know, I think I wound up having 3. And I don't remember waking up in the morning. You know, so when I went to that game last night, I don't think I played. That was good because I had a headache. You know? But it's fun. It was a lot of good fun, and I keep telling myself, I've talked to my wife about this, I think I'd like to write a book. I've kept a lot of notes. And when I'm talking to you folks, so many things come up.
What What was the most money you ever paid for a season?
Well, I think it was 18,000, and that was after the 5th year. And that's a good question because a lot of people say, how much did Weston make? Or how much did Baylor make? Or, you know, those guys. How much did Chamberlain make? Well, West in his 7th year was making 70. And you guys know how good he was. Baylor in his 9th year was making 90. Chamberlain signed $1 million contract. Everybody went, wow, it's $100,000 a year for 10 years. And if you look at 50 points a game, he averaged 50 points a game and 24 rebounds a game in one of his seasons. That's and I saw him when I was at Pepperdine. I saw him walk through the gym, and you know, 6'8" door, what is it, 36 inches wide, pretty good sized door. I saw him duck and turn sideways to get through the door. And when he came into the gym and I was watching him, that was somebody asked about weightlifting and stuff. I never thought that we had all our own weights, but he was into lifting weights, and he was playing basketball with Al Adams one-on-one, and he was shooting jump shots from the top of the key, not that fadeaway little banker that he shot all the time or that finger roll. He was a pretty good athlete. And when I heard he could run the 440 and 49 flat at 282 pounds, that's a pretty good athlete. Any more? Again, I can't tell you folks how much I appreciate that. I mean, it's like, it brings tears to my eyes because it's a very humbling experience, and I just really appreciate the honor totally. Thank you very much.